Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are racing very, very quickly to the end of the school year. We just put out a newsletter last night with a whole bunch of updates for our last events of the school year. We've got some pretty good ones coming up. We'll be hanging out with Jane Goodall this week. We'll be heading on board Canada's only research icebreaker. What else we've got? We'll be out on the river with my friend Joe Cutler in Zambia. So he's about a week into his latest expedition. Today we're visiting the Anna Green Gables house out on Prince Edward Island. So there's still lots going on this week and a tiny bit of events spilling into next week before we shut things down for the school year and everybody gets to have a pretty cool summer break. What else do we have to discuss? I can see we've got a good group tuning in online via YouTube right now. So don't be shy. Use the chat sidebar. Send us in some questions. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Say, hey, got a couple camera classrooms hanging out backstage as well. And then we'll have a Kahoot a little bit later as well. So be ready for that. I will share the details for how you can join in on that action. But let's get into today's event. Today, we're going to spend a little time with Nathan Robinson. He is a marine biologist and science communicator from the UK. He conducts groundbreaking science and answers important ecological questions about endangered species, while also connecting global audiences in the fight for our ocean health. Nathan does this by creating viral videos. Some examples have included removing plastic straw from a sea turtle's nose and also filming the secret lives of sea turtles through shell-mounted cameras. He's also spent over 15 years establishing and coordinating sea turtle conservation projects in places like Costa Rica, Greece, South Africa, the Bahamas, and the United States. So let's grab Nathan from backstage right now. Hey, Nathan, how are you?
Hey, Joe, I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's great to have you joining us live today. I believe this is your first hangout with us.
I'm very excited about, to be part of this.
Perfect. Well, I already have classrooms saying hey on YouTube. We've got Ms. Van Kam's group in Scarborough, Ms. Steinhoff in Guelph, some 4-5s in Kitchener, Ontario. So yeah, don't be shy, classrooms. Say hey, send us in your questions. But Nathan, let's let you take over for a little bit. We would love to dive into some of your research.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me again. And I thought I'd just start with a little rundown as to, I guess, what got me here right now and what I do. And as Joe mentioned, my training is in sea turtle research and conservation. That's what I've now been working in for, I wish it was 15 years. It's now close to 20 years now. And when I started in the world of, say, sea turtle research, I started volunteering in Greece. And one summer, I was in between university, and I realized that at university, I was getting fantastic information about all the amazing things that go on in the ocean. But if I wanted to be part of frontline conservation, I need to start volunteering, and I need to go somewhere that needed help. So I volunteered on the Archelon, the Sea Turtle Protection Society of Greece. And I spent my summer walking up and down sea turtle nesting beaches to find eggs, to protect eggs from tourists that might, say, put umbrella parasols through nests, or cars that might be driving over nests, or from dogs or foxes, badgers, and raccoons that might be digging up nests. And I kind of fell in love. I love this idea of hands-on conservation, being part of something that felt super important. And I was very fortunate that this work took me to several other countries. I moved to South Africa for a while, and I started working on sea turtle conservation in South Africa. I then moved to Costa Rica. I then spent some time in the US Virgin Islands. But I started noticing a pattern. I started noticing in almost every one of these locations, sea turtle populations were declining. And in almost every one of these locations, there were these incredible projects that were protecting the nesting beaches, where you had people looking up and down for nests and making sure that the females were safe, the nesting females, because sea turtles emerge from the water to nest on land, and ensuring that those hatchlings were safe when they finally left the nest and ran down to the ocean. And it started kind of showing me that there must be something else going on out there. And of course there was. There was a lot of scientists that had discovered that, or shown for many, many years, that it's not just the beach. These sea turtles might nest on beaches, but they're spending this big time, the majority of their lives, out at sea, where they're at massive risk from, let's say, 3 major things: climate change, plastic pollution, and unsustainable fisheries. And this is fisheries that might not be fishing for sea turtles, but accidentally catching sea turtles in their nets. And these are issues that you'd never fix on a single nesting beach. Doesn't matter how much plastic you collect from one nesting beach, it doesn't affect, or it doesn't change the amount of plastic in the ocean. It doesn't matter how much CO2 you don't produce, or how sustainably you live on your little area. The rest of the world is still driving us towards climate change. And while I was kind of having these thoughts, an incredible event happened to me. And it was, I was working in Costa Rica, and I was working with sea turtles in water. And I was sampling these sea turtles for epibionts, the animals that live on other animals. And that meant that every turtle I found, I'd look over their whole body and look for barnacles or crabs or leeches, things that might be stuck on them. And sometimes these animals can give you information about the health of that animal or where it's been feeding. But I found something else that I'd never seen before. I found a sea turtle that had something wedged inside its nose. And I initially thought it might be some kind of worm with a shell or some invertebrate, some sea critter that had kind of become encrusted on a sea turtle's nostril. And then when I went to remove it to enable the turtle to breathe again, I discovered it was this. It was a plastic drinking straw. And I was shocked. I mean, I remember the moment when I saw that, just it kind of took my breath away a bit, because I had used plastic straws in my life before, and I can't tell you that every single straw I've ever used had been disposed of properly. So part of me felt the guilt for this. It might not be my straw, but maybe there's other straws I've used that are floating around in the ocean. And I uploaded a video of, or a friend of mine, a wonderful friend of mine, Chris Bigginer, recorded a video of me removing the straw. We uploaded it online, and it went crazy viral overnight. And within a few days, it was one of the most trending videos on Facebook. It was absolutely nuts. We were getting news interviews around the world, and then you started seeing all these amazing anti-plastic campaigns kind of starting up all the way around the world, like anti-straw movements, anti-single-use plastic movements. And I started realizing that luck had kind of given me this tool to help try to address some of these big issues that our oceans are facing on a scale so much bigger than a single sea turtle's nesting beach. It was the tool of social media, the tool of outreach, the tool of kind of telling stories in a way. I don't mean telling stories as in making things up. I mean telling a story about the story of what's going on in our ocean. And that has led me down this path ever since then, where I've been working in different areas around the world, doing research on different species. But I always have this goal of, while I'm collecting data and that can be important for, say, management and changing policies and guiding conservation efforts, I'm also recording footage that I can use to tell the stories of these animals to engage the public in making behavioral change. And if we have a little bit of time now, I want to share two of these projects with you that I'm most proud of. One is where we've been using animal-borne cameras. So these are cameras mounted onto the shells of sea turtles that give you a first-person view of how these animals see their world around you. So they can tell you what these animals are feeding on, what are their important habitats, what are their threats. And then secondly, I'm going to show you a project where we're now taking cameras to the bottom of the ocean into some of the least explored habitats on these planets, and we're filming some of the largest yet least studied animals on this planet. Now, if that's okay, Joe, I'm gonna sharing machine. I'm gonna share a video now to show you the turtle cam. Does that work?
Yep, I see it loading on our side. There we go.
Oh, perfect. So this is the turtle cam. So we have a little setup. It's a diving camera similar to a GoPro, and you can see one in the image at the top there, that we attach periodically or temporarily onto the shell of a sea turtle. So we find a turtle, we attach the camera, it records for multiple hours. It basically gives us a turtle's eye view of the world. And then after, depending, 3 to 4 to 5 hours, the whole unit pops off, floats to the surface. Then we can recover the camera and we can figure out exactly what the animal has been up to. And one of the big discoveries that I like the most about this project is we used to often think that sea turtles were solitary animals, that they didn't really interact with each other unless they were mating, unless they were meeting up to reproduce. But the animals we were studying were juveniles, and they almost can barely swim past another turtle without going up and interacting in some ways. And some of these interactions seem friendly. Like we have lots of pictures of sea turtles coming up and, say, rubbing heads with each other, or sitting in front of each other and almost like flaring their nostrils back and forth. And we're still trying to figure out what these turtles are saying to each other. Like, what is their language? So that's one project. And just while we're here, I'll move over to the second one. And this is where we're deploying cameras into the bottom of the ocean. And the particular thing we filmed, you're about to see here, is the second ever footage of a live giant squid on our planet. The animal that you just saw there was about 4 to 6 meters. So let's say 12 to 12 to 18 feet in length. And it's only ever been filmed once before. Well, once before in the world, it was filmed in the waters of Japan. And we filmed it again in the Gulf of Mexico a few years ago. And the reason this animal has never been filmed is because generally, when we go into the deep sea trying to study deep sea animals, we go there with big bright lights, white lights. And that's because the deeper you go into the ocean, the darker it gets. Sunlight only penetrates so far. And when you get to these habitats, if you want to explore, we generally bring lights so we can see the things around us. But for the animals that live in those habitats, that can actually be quite intimidating, quite scary. So we set up this camera, me and an incredible scientist who's also an explorer, part of the member of the Explorers Club, Edie Widder, deployed cameras that had no moving parts, they created no sound, and instead of using white lights, they used red light, and a specific type of red light that most deep sea life can't see, which means we can now have animals come to us and they're not scared away by our white lights. And the second we did that, we got this footage. And it just shows that when we're exploring these habitats, traveling to some of these least studied parts of our planet, there's so many mysteries to be found if we step carefully. If we have a bit of respect for the animals that we're working with or the communities that we're working with, we can be amazed at the kind of mysteries that can unfold around us. So that's a little introduction to me and some of the stuff I do. And if anyone has any questions, I would love to answer them.
All right, perfect. And Nathan, we saw the cameras deployed on the turtles. Are there any other species that you've deployed cameras on?
Yes, we've done a bunch of different turtle species now. So you mainly saw green turtles in those images, but we've also now done loggerheads and hawksbills as well. We've also recently done some belugas and dolphins, and a few years ago we did sperm whales as well. So my favorite animals to work with are typically the sea turtles, so I tend to focus on them, but we've also expanded a little bit into the marine mammal world as well. But with the marine mammals, because they're so big, you often don't see as much. You just see like a round lump, which is their head. And what I think I love so much about the turtle footage is you see them looking around, you see them interacting with things, inspecting things, and it just makes it a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more personal. I find it a little bit easier to engage with the two sea turtles from the Animal Born camera footage.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I've got a whole bunch more classes saying hi online. So we've got some second graders in Indiana. We've got a crew in Nova Scotia, Mackenzie King Public School, fifth graders in Kitchener, Ottawa, fourth, fifth graders are joining us. So yeah, good crew. We've got some camera classes too. So I think what I'll do, let's maybe start with a camera class first. Then we'll grab some YouTube questions. So Ms. Pollock's third graders are in New York right now. I am going to pop them into the call. Hey, third graders, how you doing? There they are.
Hey, everyone.
If you want to unmute that mic for us, we'd love to grab a question or two.
There we go. Okay.
There you go.
We're unmuted. Okay. Peyton, you want to stand up and ask your question? Stand up so they can see you.
How heavy can sea turtles get?
How heavy can sea turtles get?
How happy?
Heavy. How much
heavy?
do they weigh?
Okay, so it depends on the species. There are 7 species of sea turtle in the world, and the smallest species, which is either the olive ridley or the Kemp's ridley, they're similar kind of size, gets to around 40 to 50 kilos, which is around, let's say, 90 to 100 pounds.
Wow.
So, like a big dog, a really big dog size. But the biggest sea turtle is the leatherback sea turtle. The leatherback sea turtle can grow to like 2.5 to 3 meters, so let's say 9 foot in size. And those have been recorded weighing over 500 kilos. And there's a couple of individuals that have even like way and above that. So we're talking up to 1,000, kind of 1,500, 2,000 pounds. So yeah, everything from this kind of size, which you could pick up, to a leatherback, which you need a truck to, if you were going to move that thing.
Very cool.
Grace has a question.
Go for it.
How many sea turtles have you saved?
How many sea turtles have I saved? Oh, I love that question. It's difficult to know because I do a lot of work with adult sea turtles. So, for example, like pulling the straws, I found other animals that have other items lodged in their throats, wrapped in line. So I've saved lots of adult turtles in that sense, like directly taken, say, fishing gear off them. But I also have spent a lot of my life working with sea turtle eggs. Now, a sea turtle might lay 100 eggs at a time, and each egg is about ping pong ball sized. Now, sometimes a sea turtle might be crawling out of the water, and they might lay their nest in an area where that nest isn't going to survive. Maybe they nest in front of a path to the beach where people walk on that area every single day, and that sand is going to get so compacted it's basically going to crush those eggs. Or maybe they nest in an area where cars are going to be driving past, or an area where there's lots of raccoons or dogs that might dig up those nests. And in those instances, I collect those eggs and put them somewhere safe. And in that instance, you might be protecting, I don't know, several thousand sea turtle eggs per night. If you're protecting 10 nests, not all of those eggs will survive to become adults because they predict only 1 in 1,000 hatchlings will actually, or eggs will survive to become adults. But you protect a lot of small turtles.
All right, Miss P's class, I promise I'll come back. I know I see more hands, but I forgot I made a Kahoot quiz behind the scenes while you were presenting. So we want to play our Kahoot quiz. And while we are playing that, I'll take some questions off of YouTube as well while classrooms are loading into their spots. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see, I want this one. And I'm going to hit start. So if you want to join us in our Kahoot today, you need to go to kahoot.it. Okay, there at the top. Kahoot.it. And it's going to ask you for a PIN number. That'll bring you in. Maybe you have a Chromebook or a tablet at your seat. You can join that way. If not, your teacher could pop this up at the front of the room. You could shout out your answers to him or her. I know we've got lots of home groups joining us today too. So if you use your phone or tablet, you can scan that QR code and it will bring you into the Kahoot. And if you just can't get in with technology, no big deal at all. You can still play along and see how you do. So kahoot.it and then put in the PIN 3034488. Well, we have our animal generated names coming in here. I'm going to start grabbing a few more questions. So Miss Joseph's crew would like to know about how many eggs will a female sea turtle lay on average?
So per nest, most sea turtles are laying somewhere between 100, or say 60 to 100 eggs per nest. But in a single nesting season, some species might be laying up to 14 nests. So sometimes it might be as low as 1 or 2, but sometimes it's up to 14. So an animal that might be laying, I don't know, let's say on average 7 nests, and each nest has 70, 80, 90 eggs, we're talking about, yeah, it could be as high as like 500 eggs in a year.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Well, you kind of touched on this already. Miss Steinhoff's class would like to know, it's a challenge to get to the nest, or sorry, from the nest to the ocean. And then it's a challenge to be a little bite-sized snack in the ocean. So what do you think is the best average or best guesstimate for who makes it to adulthood? How many?
I think the best estimate is about 1 in 1,000 hatchlings will survive to reach adulthood. Now, which one is that 1 in 1,000? I think it really comes up to luck. When you're a tiny little sea turtle, you're basically a little snack for anything larger than you in the ocean. And you don't have that many defenses. Their shells are still very soft. So if an animal is going to try to eat you, it's probably going to eat you. The ones that survive are quite simply the lucky ones who, for whatever reason, the predators don't find.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so our next, we actually just, speaking about that, we have an expedition right now. We've been following around the world for 2 years called the Darwin 200. And they've been following Darwin's voyage of the Beagle on a tall ship.
So
and
cool.
They were just on Ascension in the Atlantic. And they got some incredible films of the sea turtles coming up and laying eggs in their nests. But then they also got some beautiful footage of the baby sea turtles hatching. But then they have it's incredible footage of the frigate birds picking them off of the beach. And, you know, we talked about that with the students. It's nature. Those frigate birds have babies to feed. And, you know, that's why there's so many eggs, is because so few of them are going to make it to adulthood. So, yeah, we got to see some amazing footage of nature in action from Ascension.
Yeah, I mean, Ascension's one of the most incredible sites in the world for seeing sea turtles. I think it's it's either the most or the second most abundant green turtle nesting beach in the world. But also, you're right, the sea turtle strategy. So think about an elephant or a human. You tend to give birth to one individual that you take care of. There's no parental care in sea turtles. They dig a hole, they put their eggs in the hole, they cover that hole back up, then they leave. Then from the moment those eggs hatch, about this size, they're on their own. They have to figure out everything else by themselves. So the strategy is you just create as many eggs as you can. And then you hope that 1 or 2 of those individuals survive. But the ones that don't survive, that end up being eaten by frigate birds or fish or things like this, it's all nutrients going back into these ocean ecosystems. So in that sense, sea turtles are not just important because they're sea turtles. Having healthy sea turtle populations can actually help support lots and lots of other marine ecosystems and marine species too.
All right. Well, I think things have slowed down here. We've got about 100 students and groups in here today, so it should be a nice, busy Kahoot. So let's get it going. There are 4 questions today, true or false, multiple choice. The quicker you put in the right answer, the more points you're going to get. And let's see who finishes on the podium today. So here we go. First question coming your way. Nice, easy warm-up question. Where is Nathan from? So we've got Canada, the USA, Brazil, or the United Kingdom. What do you think? I've got a nice clue decoding there for you if you need it. But I think this will be a nice warm-up question for us before we get into maybe some turtle action. Got a couple more seconds to lock it in. Answers are flying in. All right, there we go. Good job, crew of the UK. Nathan, are you in the UK today? Is that where you're calling us from today?
No, I'm actually I'm from the UK, but I'm based in Spain, so I'm calling you from Barcelona.
All right, very cool. All right, so that puts the stellar dolphin in top spot. Let's go to another question. So Nathan said 3 things that impact sea turtles in the ocean. He mentioned 3 things. One of these doesn't belong. Is it climate change, sound pollution, plastic pollution, or bycatch in fish nets? So which one did Nathan not mention today? Climate change, sound pollution, plastic pollution, bycatch in fish nets. Remember, he talked about 3. He gave us 3 examples today. You've got about 8 seconds to lock something in.
This is a fantastic question, by the way, Joe. I really like this. very interesting topic.
Oh, all right. So sound pollution. He did not talk about sound pollution. So good job, crew. Now, Nathan, I know sound pollution can really impact things like whales. Do we know much about if it has any impact on sea turtles?
I love this. We don't really know right now. I mentioned that some of our work with the turtle camera has shown how social sea turtles can be. There's another bit of work I was doing. Once again back in Costa Rica several years ago. We put microphones in sea turtle nests for the first time, and we heard them chirping to each other. So in the nest, they talk to each other. And we recorded some of the first ever instances of sea turtle vocalizations in the nest. And another group of researchers who are not connected to myself have actually just started recording using similar setups to I have, animal-born cameras, but with microphones attached, that the turtles are also vocalizing at certain times under certain behaviors as well. So sea turtles are probably a little bit more vocal than we've ever realized, but whether they are impacted by things like ocean exploration or the big, some of those big kind of textbook examples of things in the ocean that make a lot of sound and a lot of noise pollution, whether it's big boats and things like this, we don't really know yet. So that's a question that future researchers are going to have to answer.
All right. We've got the blue jaguar has taken that top spot. A couple true or false coming your way. Sea turtles interact more in the ocean than we thought. What do you think? True or false? Sea turtles interact more in the ocean than we thought. You've got about 10 seconds left to lock something in. True or false? They're interacting more in the ocean than we thought. All right. Good job, crew. That is true. Yeah, those cameras are really cool. We get that really... a friend of mine who you may know, Roxanne Beltran, we just hosted her a week or two ago. She studies elephant seals in California. So she puts the cameras on the elephant seals.
Uh-huh.
So we joined her on a beach in California with the elephant seals.
So cool.
And so she tries to figure out what they do when they disappear for like 7 months of the year.
I wonder if she has footage as well of interaction between great whites and the seals out there.
Yeah, she might. I'll have to ask her. Okay, what's happening here? Oh, blue jaguar not letting go. One more question coming your way. Nathan's first viral video was of a giant squid. Is that true or is that false? Nathan's first viral video was of a giant squid. True or false? This picture is absolutely not a giant squid. It's a very close-up picture of a small squid. But was Nathan's first viral video of a giant squid? True or false? Ooh, a little split on that one, but more went with false. And that's right. We talked about the straw video, removing the turtle straw from the nose. And so that brings the cute hawk into third place on our podium. The proud emu taking that second spot. And what's going on in first place? Do we have a new leader? We do. The amazing ants sneaking in at the last moment and taking the lead. All right. Good job, crew. Thanks for playing along. I'm going to close that screen share, turn off that music, and we need to visit Miss Williams' crew. Miss Williams has a couple students hanging out with her. Let's get them in here. Hey, Mrs. Williams, how are we doing today?
We're doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Does anyone have a question they would like?
Chattanooga Lake in New York. Do you guys have a question or two?
Do anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, Lucas, go ahead.
So, do embryos in the eggs, do sea turtle eggs in the do embryos in sea turtle eggs actually make sound?
Do embryos in sea turtle eggs actually make sounds?
Yes, that's a fantastic question. It is actually the embryos in the egg that start vocalizing first. So they start vocalizing, so talking before they've emerged from the egg when they're still attached to their yolk sac. So technically, we're still calling them embryos as opposed to hatchlings. And the sounds, I don't have a recording immediately available, but the sounds, it literally sounds like tiny little lasers. It's this little like pew, pew, pew sounds that they make.
Oh, that's cool.
Very cool. What do you think? Do we have another sea turtle question there? I can come back too if we don't.
Maybe come back. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's zip back to YouTube here. So Miss Van Veenkamp's crew, Jesse would like to know, do the turtles breathe underwater? If not, how long do they stay underwater?
Ooh, wonderful question. Yes, so turtles don't breathe underwater. They breathe at the surface. They have lungs like you and me, so they need to come to the surface to breathe. But they can conduct some incredibly long dives. Now, generally, for most species, the longest dive they conduct is around, let's say, 1 to 2 hours, which is still pretty impressive on a single breath. But there's one species, the loggerhead sea turtle, and we actually have evidence of this. We haven't published this yet, but we have a loggerhead turtle that did a single dive for 14 hours nonstop. And it's
Wow.
because loggerhead turtles on the east coast of the US kind of hibernate. So when the waters get really cold, what they do is that their bodies kind of shut down and they will bury themselves in mud at the bottom of the ocean. And there's almost nothing, like their heartbeat is super slow. There's not much going on. But then once every multiple, say 10 hours at a time, they'll come up to the surface, they'll take a breath, and then they go back down. They're not active. They literally they dig themselves into mud and wait there. When they're normally more active or in different areas of the world, so for the loggerhead turtles we have here in the Med, no, they never dive longer than, say, 3 hours ever. But there's the ones in the North Atlantic off the coast of the US seem to be able to do this funky thing where they just turn everything off and it enables them to hold their breath for half a day.
Very cool. Our crew in Nova Scotia want to know, is there a difference between a giant squid and a colossal squid?
Yes, that's another fantastic question. There is a difference. There's actually quite a lot of differences. So this is an example of convergent evolution. Giant squid and colossal squid actually aren't very closely related, but it's one species of squid that has grown to enormous size and another very different species of squid that's also grown to enormous size. So they're completely different species. Colossal squid are a type of glass squid. Most of their other relatives are teeny tiny things. They are a lot thicker, so they're chunkier than giant squid. Giant squid are actually quite thin and lean. And on their suckers, on their tentacles and along their arms, on giant squid, you have the sucker, then all around the sucker, you've got all these little teeth, so that when they suck on with their suction cups, they kind of leave these like cut marks around them. Colossal squid instead have suckers, and then in the middle of the sucker, they have a big hook, like a single hook that kind of latches into the flesh, as well as the suction cup itself. So there's a couple of important differences. So yeah, they are very different squid.
All right. Very cool. Miss Orman's crew is tuning in online, and they're wondering, if you're landlocked, can you still help sea turtles?
100%. As I mentioned kind of earlier, the big threats faced by sea turtles are climate change, plastic pollution, and fisheries, and unsustainable fisheries. And these are issues that regardless of where you are on the planet, you can play a role in trying to address those issues. Now, whether this is not accepting that plastic straw or using a reusable bag instead of a plastic bag in a supermarket, you're helping to reduce plastic that at some point may eventually end up in the ocean. Whether you decide to turn your lights off when you're leaving the office or leaving your house for the day, whether you leave your lights on, this can determine the amount of CO2 going into the atmosphere and determines climate change. And then for fisheries, what you eat, whether you decide to say eat less meat or whether you're going to eat fish that's fished from sustainable sources versus non-sustainable, say tuna fisheries or swordfish fisheries or big fish fisheries that tend to have lots of bycatch. These are other ways you can be part of sea turtle conservation. And as I said, like the work we do on the nesting beach will only go so far. So not only can you play a role in sea turtle conservation, but you're absolutely essential in sea turtle conservation. The people on the beaches, they're working hard, and there's thousands of individuals around the world working at protecting sea turtles in their habitats every day of their lives. But without the help of individuals elsewhere around the world, it's a fight we'll never win. So we need everyone involved.
All right. Well said. Mrs. P's class, I'm going to bring you back on camera, see if we have another sea turtle question or two for us. Looks like we might.
Shut our window real quick.
Oh, it sounds like the lawn.
They're mowing the lawn.
That's okay.
Juliana, stand up and ask your question. Yep.
Oh, do turtles have to be a certain age before they die?
How old do turtles live to be before they die?
That's another wonderful, some great questions today. The honest answer is we don't really know. No one's really been monitoring sea turtles long enough in the wild to know when they die, how old they can get. What we do know is that we do know for most species, they will start to nest after around 20 to 30 years. So they'll go from a hatchling to a full-grown female or full-grown male after around 20, 30 years. And we know at some places around the world, they've had the same individual nesting for periods of time up to or over now 40 years. So we know they can definitely get older than 60 years, but there's not that many projects that have been monitoring sea turtles for longer than on beaches for longer than 40 years around the world. So we simply don't have the data to answer that question yet. My guess would probably be somewhere from 60 to 80, something similar-ish to humans, but it's still a guess.
All right. You got one more there for us?
Braden, go ahead, stand up.
What is the oldest turtle you've ever encountered?
So, what's the oldest turtle that you think you've ever encountered?
Oldest is difficult to say because there's almost no way to tell a sea turtle's age, and much like humans, in a sense, someone's size can't tell you how old they are. Some people kind of grow and then spend their life being shorter than others. Others grow much younger and be much taller, and it's difficult to say. What we do know is that as sea turtles get older, they actually get healthier in a sense. So they tend to lay more eggs, they tend to migrate faster, and basically they get better at doing what they're doing. So as far as we know, sea turtles have something that we call in the scientific world negligible senescence. Now, that basically means they don't get old. So senescence is what what happens to all of us. You start to get old, your body starts to hurt a bit, you can't run as fast as you once ran, you start to forget things. Sea turtles don't seem to have that. But in terms of the biggest animal I've ever encountered, I've spent a lot of my life working with leatherbacks, and those are the big ones that say can go to like 9 feet. And I'm quite tall. I'm 6 foot plus. And usually most leatherbacks I can measure myself. So if I want to measure the size of their shell, I can reach from one end to the other end, and that's how I measure the length of the shell. And I lived in South Africa for 2 years, and when I was working with some of the leatherbacks down there were several individuals that were at least just their shell alone, not their head and their tail, longer than I could stretch easy. So we're talking about like 7 foot, just the shell alone, not their head on top, not their tail beneath, and so they're pretty big animals.
All right. Thanks, Mrs. P's crew. Those are some great questions. Okay, I want to go back to you too, because you have a bunch of questions here. Let's see if we can speed through a couple of them. So here's a two-parter for you. Do you have a favorite species, and have you seen all 7?
Sadly, I haven't seen all 7. There's 2 I'm missing out on. I'm missing out on the Kemp's Ridley, which is a species that's only nests in the Gulf of Mexico, and then it kind of lives along the eastern shoreboard or feeds on the eastern shoreboard of the US. I've never seen that one. And then there's the flatback, which is only found in the waters of Australia. So those are the 2 that I'm missing. And in terms of my favorites, for years I would have said the leatherback because it's the biggest and it's the one I've probably worked with the most, and I love them. But I honestly think that my favorites is the olive ridley, which is probably the smallest sea turtle species. It's the most abundant sea turtle species, so it's the least conservation concern. But because of this, they're kind of the understudied sea turtle of the world. Because they're slightly more abundant, people have spent so much time looking at the other species and protecting the other species that they haven't realized what's going on with the most common one. So it's kind of like saying that we know there's all these endangered species that we know what they do, but the pigeons, or say the sea turtle world, the ones that there's lots of, we actually have no idea like where they go, where they feed, what they feed on, where they migrate. So I very much like the olive ridleys.
All right. I'm going to put another two-parter your way from Miss Jones. where would you go if you wanted to find the most sea turtles, and how is it they can swim so fast?
If I wanted to see the most amount of sea turtles at one time, there's a few specific places in the world I would go to. And I would go to either India, Orissa, or I would go to Oceanal in Costa Rica. Now, these are two specific beaches where a phenomenon happens called an arribada, which translates as like arrival by boat in Spanish. The olive ridley has this kind of quirky behavior whereby 2 or 3 days, or 3 to 5 days per month during the nesting season, literally hundreds of thousands of sea turtles might come to lay their eggs on specific beaches around the world. And these beaches are so dense that the first group of turtles come up onto the beach, they lay their eggs, and as they're walking back, the next round of turtles often dig up the eggs of the first one, just because there's not enough space for all of these turtles to lay. But those phenomenon only occur in two species, the olive ridley and the Kemp's ridley, and they only occur in a few locations around the world. Orissa in India is the biggest one. Next biggest is Oceanal in Costa Rica. There's a couple of other beaches in Costa Rica and Nicaragua that also have, and Mexico that also have arribadas, but it's very rare. But if you can see them, it's one of the most incredible things on the planet. And I've completely forgotten the second part of that question because I got too excited about arribadas.
How are they able to move so fast in the water?
Their sea turtles are just incredibly streamlined. So they might not be, say, like torpedo shaped like a shark, but they have a very kind of smooth body shape, incredibly powerful flippers. Their chest, like their pectoral muscles, are absolutely massive. So if you ever try to, say, restrain a sea turtle, so sometimes when we're working with sea turtles or we're rescuing a sea turtle, we might need to hold onto it or kind of hold its flippers back, because they can literally hit their flippers so hard that they can like break the skin if it hits their shell too hard, and they can give you an incredible bruises. I've seen people literally like swept off their feet by turtles that like hit them on the back of their heels when they're not really been paying attention. And that combination of being hydrodynamic and just having incredibly powerful flippers, it lets them cruise the way they do.
All right. We'll squeeze in 2 more here from online, then we'll visit Miss Wilson's class before we say goodbye. So Miss Scott's crew would like to know, do you always get the cameras back after they've been released from the turtle?
I love that question. Funnily enough, yes, we still to this day haven't lost a single camera, and I've deployed, I guess at this point probably somewhere in the range of 200 to 300 cameras, and we've done them in some of the like massive waves and some very rough conditions. Sometimes we're recovering them on sailboats, sometimes they're recovering them by hand, sometimes we're recovering them on paddle boats. There was one specific instance where I thought we'd lost a camera. This happened years ago. I was working in the Bahamas. We deployed a bunch of cameras on sea turtles, and as we were waiting for the camera to detach, a storm started coming in, and we started seeing lightning, and we had to go, like, we need to leave. This is getting dangerous. So we drove back to port, but the camera detached while the storm was coming over, and the next day when we came to the site to try to find the sea turtle, the camera was nowhere to be found. Couldn't hear it, couldn't see it. And I assumed that we'd lost our first camera. And then about a month later, I'd written my phone number and my address on the camera itself. And about a month later, I received a phone call from someone who had, on a different island. I was on Eleuthera, and they were on an island in the Exumas, in the Exuma Sound. And they'd just gone for a morning walk along the beach. And as they walked along the beach with their dog had run up to them with this strange, like, red thing in its mouth. And when they realized, they thought it was a camera, they saw the number, they called me up. And yeah, we actually found a way that they were going through the airport at the same time my boss at the time was going through the airport in Nassau, the capital of the Bahamas. They passed him the camera, got the camera back. We still have all the footage, and we got, so to this day, we still haven't lost a camera. There's always the possibility that the next time we deploy it, we're going to lose it. And I stand by this idea of never put anything in the ocean that Never put anything in the ocean that you need back, because there's always the chance that something might happen. That turtle might migrate somewhere else. The turtle might go somewhere. The camera might pop off or just run out of battery and not give you a signal. But luckily, very luckily, we haven't lost any.
All right. Well, we hope that luck holds. We'll let Mrs. Williams' crew have the last question if they have one more sea turtle question for us. Looks like they might.
So
I see a hand.
I should see how many ancestors do sea turtles have?
How many ancestors? Yeah. How many ancestors do sea turtles have?
Oh, what a cool question. It's very difficult to answer because, firstly, sea turtles have been around for a very long time. And if you take the evolutionary tree back, you'll keep going back to single-celled organisms, and then you basically have every species available on the planet that's somehow evolutionarily, it's a difficult word to say, related to sea turtles. What I can tell you is there are currently 7 species of sea turtle in the world. There's a bunch of sea turtles that have gone extinct now, as in like prehistoric times. Luckily, we haven't lost a single sea turtle species in recent history. And the other thing I'll add to that is sea turtles first evolved somewhere between 250 and 200 million years ago, which means that sea turtles are swimming in our ocean. The first sea turtles are swimming in our ocean while there's still T-Rexes and Triceratops and things like that roaming around on the land. So the sea turtles have literally outlived the dinosaurs.
All right. Thanks, Mrs. Williams' crew. That was a great question. Is that one more there?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the 2 sea turtles that you said you were missing, do you plan on going to find them and see what they're like?
Yes, at some point. I mean, I'd love to, right? I'd love to go see. I'd love to tick them all off the list. Australia's a bit of a tough one. It's pretty far for me. I'd say I'm based in Spain, so it's the other side of the planet. The Kemp's Ridley, I'm hoping. Who knows? I do a lot of research in the North Atlantic off the coast of the US, and there's always a chance that we might see a Kemp's Ridley out there. I just haven't seen one so far. But yeah, at some point in my future, I don't have anything planned, but I do need to organize a trip to Australia to see the flatback.
All right. Thanks, Mrs. Williams' crew. Well, Nathan, I want to start off with a huge shout out to our classrooms. Great questions today from our camera classrooms, from our YouTube classrooms. Thanks for playing Kahoot with us. And then, Nathan, it was great to steal a little bit of your time out there in Spain and learn about some of the really cool work you're doing, learning the stuff, but then putting it out there for people to see and act upon.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the show, Joe. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, thank you so much for all those wonderful questions. You made me think as well. And I had a great time. So thank you.
All right. Excellent. Well, we've got a couple classrooms backstage. We'll give them a chance if they want to do a big wave. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thank you to our YouTube classrooms. It was great to have you hanging out with us today. Lots and lots of groups on YouTube. And we hope to see you later in the week. We have lots of events coming up this week and a couple next week. So we'll see you all soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.